Hello everyone, my name is Ace, and welcome to the video. It's safe to say we're entering something of a very exciting era in the World Rally Championship. The new cars are wider, more aggressive, and more powerful than they've ever been since the Group B era. More importantly, there are 4 major factory teams in the World Rally Championship. We have Toyota, M Sport Ford, Hyundai, and Citroen. And I think now will be a good time to roll back the clock to the last time there was a major rule change in the WRC. Enter the star of this video, the Mini John Cooper Works WRC. In 2010 at the Paris Motor Show, BMW-owned Mini announced its entry into the World Rally Championship. The drivers announced to drive the cars would be Chris Meek, protege of the late great Colin McRae, and Danny Sordo, Carlos Sainz's protege. And the cars would be built by ProDrive. With ProDrive, Colin's protege and Carlos' protege, the team looked like becoming a sequel to the 90s Subaru World Rally team. So you'd be forgiven for thinking this was the start of a fairy tale. Mini announced its plan to win the WRC by the year 2013. They competed in a limited run of 6 rallies in 2011 with both cars driven by Meek and Sordo. And in 2012, they competed the entire World Rally Championship, but only with one car, Danny Sordo driving it. The team's highest finishes were 3rd in Germany in 2011 and 2nd in Monaco in 2012. Before the end of the 2012 season, Dr. Kay Sigler, Senior VP at Brand Management at Mini, announced Mini's retirement from the WRC after careful consideration, or so they say. ProDrive and BMW would then continue to develop the 1.6-liter engine for use by privateer teams, and the Mini would be entered as a privateer car for the following seasons. And believe it or not, that's it. That's the end of Mini's involvement in the WRC. One partial season with 2 cars, one full season with just 1 car, before BMW decided to pull the plug. Now, usually my videos are just facts, but this time I'm taking a bit of a detour, and I'm going to give a fair amount of opinion. The Mini program was supposed to be a works team. Works team have a fair number of characteristics that have been consistent throughout rallying's history, or indeed any motorsport. They've usually been flush with money. Money has never been an issue. They've usually been long-term commitments. And they've usually heralded results. The Mini program was none of those things. It was not a works program. Let's dissect the problems with this project one by one. First of all, let's look at the car. The rules for that season meant that cars had to become smaller. Ford had to use the Fiesta as opposed to the Focus because it was a Super Mini, because it was smaller. Citroen had to use the DS3 as opposed to the C4. Again, that was a Super Mini. You expect Mini to do the same. It has Mini in the name. The Mini 1, the Mini Cooper. No, they decided to use the Mini Countryman. The Mini that was not Mini. This was the successor to the Mini Cooper S of the 60s? This is the car that would represent Mini's motorsporting ambitions in their backyard in the World Rally Championship? Let's turn our attention to BMW and their part of this. David Richards, head of ProDrive, for the entire time that the project was going on, was complaining about a lack of funds. Publicly. I thought BMW was a giant. I thought they could allocate any amount of funds to any motorsporting enterprise that they deemed fit. They showed that with the DTM, with the Formula 1 program. Mini got the short end of the stick. And the relationship between ProDrive and Mini itself with BMW was very strained. Strange to see in what was supposed to be a works effort. This never happened between Subaru and David Richards. Now let's take a second to look at the drivers and their role in all this. Yes, there is no doubt about it. Chris Meek was severely inconsistent during the 2011 season. He had more accidents than Danny Sordo, and Sordo had the better results, mostly due to consistency. But that was still no reason to effectively contract gulag him for the entirety of the 2012 season. He was still under contract to Mini, he could not move to other teams, and he could not drive the Mini. That ended up with him having his career basically stunted for an entire year. Yes, he did ultimately win out, moving out to Citroën, but you still have to wonder what would have happened if he had had that one extra year competing full-time in the WRC. And bear in mind, he was a rising star. He was the former IRC champion at that point with Peugeot. And what were the consequences of this entire project? Let's look at it in terms of prestige, because that's the most important thing of racing. That's the reason you go racing, to elevate your brand. Well, it's fair to say BMW and Mini didn't look very good at the end of this. Not allocating funds and not committing to a project? It looks really bad, doesn't it? Let's look at how it affected ProDrive. Do you see them building cars in WRC? Yeah, thought so. That was the end of their involvement in rallying. Almost entirely. The Mini entry was so craved because at the time there were only 2 manufacturers in the championship. There was very little manufacturer interest. A third runner would have made a huge difference. And Mini was there or thereabouts, but it wasn't exactly the shake-up to the status quo that we expected. It was still ultimately the Citroën and Ford show. As we come close to the conclusion of this video, we have to ask, what can we garner from this project going forward? It ultimately didn't do too much to damage the championship, as soon as Mini left, they were replaced by Hyundai and Volkswagen, especially Volkswagen going on to be almost dominant in the championship, and Hyundai being competitive and giving Citroën, Ford, and VW a run for their money. Today, even though Volkswagen has left, but it only left after winning several championships and was replaced by Toyota, who equally seem to be ambitious. Let's just hope nothing like this ever happens again. Let's hope no other manufacturer decides willy-nilly to enter a half-baked project and then pull out as soon as it's inconvenient for them. BMW have shown that maybe Mini's interests are not exactly what they have at heart. They've shown that rallying isn't exactly a sport they're willing to support and nurture. I don't want to seem like too much of a romantic, but motorsport is supposed to be where the true passion and grit of the automotive industry is shown. This is where we had Ferdinand Porsche, this is where we had Enzo Ferrari, this is where we had Carroll Shelby. This is where we had Colin Chapman. Mini was nowhere fit to be with any of these. It's so sad that very few people would not have the classic Mini Cooper S as one of their top 5 rally cars of all time, while the new car probably belongs more towards the lower end of that. Anyway, let's end this video before I rant on for too long. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you all next time.千本桜